is up, everybody? This is Julian, or you can call me JP, and I'm representing JP Fitness. And today I'm here to talk about isometric contractions and how you can apply them to your training, or if you simply just don't know what they are. The main things that people do in the gym, again, is they do concentric contractions and eccentric contractions. Not so much the eccentric contractions as much as concentric contractions, but they do them unknowingly. But to put it more simply is whenever you do an exercise, I tend to use a biceps curl because it's easiest for people to relate to. But again, this is every exercise. On a biceps curl, when you go up, that is the positive portion or the concentric portion of the movement. The eccentric portion or the negative portion is the down portion of the biceps curl. Again, this applies to any exercise. If you take a squat, for example, the up portion of a squat is the concentric portion, and the down portion of the squat, when you are going down, is the eccentric or negative portion. Concentric portion, again, it's positive work. You are accelerating something, or you are making something go faster, you are pushing something. Eccentric contractions are negative work, which means you are decelerating or you are slowing down something. Think about a squat again. Normally, if you were doing a bar squat and you were to just let the bar go, the bar would fall and hit the ground. But you are slowing down the bar path as you go down in a squat. What most people don't do is isometric contractions. An isometric contraction is a contraction where there is no technical work being done. There is no change in joint angle. To get a little bit more in depth on that, when people think of the word work, they think of going to work, doing work, like picking things up, actually moving. But the technical definition of work is force times displacement or force times distance. So for example, if you are doing a bench press, you unrack the bar and you go halfway down and you hold it. Let's just say you're holding it there. You are not moving the bar, so no technical work is being done. Yes, you are expelling energy. Yes, you are exerting yourself, but you are not technically performing work. So again, isometric contraction is a contraction where there's no work being done or there's no change in joint angle. For example, a biceps curl again. If you were to take a bar or dumbbells and hold them right here and just stop and hold it, you are now doing an isometric contraction. Again, you unrack a bench press, you hold it halfway, you are doing an isometric contraction. Same thing with a squat. If you go halfway down in a squat and you just hold it there, that's an isometric contraction. Regardless of what exercise you do, isometric contractions are always being used. So even during a concentric contraction or an eccentric contraction, some part of your body is using an isometric contraction. If you weren't, then you would just fall. For example, if you're doing a standing biceps curl or even a seated biceps curl, what do you think your postural muscles are doing? Your core, your erector spinae, they're holding you up. Your transverse abdominis, they're keeping some type of tension for you to hold yourself up. If you look at elite bench pressers or elite power lifters, their whole goal is to create immense amounts of tension when they're doing the bench press so they can exert the most force possible to lift as much weight possible and win a competition or break records. So that's why isometric contractions, they're used in everything. The main reasons why you use an isometric contraction is one, you want to get better with other movements. Every other contraction uses isometric contractions in it. So for example, if you want to get good at a bench press and you really don't know how to contract your abs that well, you might on your ab day, you might want to add some I guess you could say ab vacuums or transverse abdominis contractions so you can learn how to create intra-abdominal pressure really well. So again, it can help with other exercises that you may be lacking in. Two, if you haven't heard of specificity of training, is you train the way you want to perform on a field for athletes or for anyone else. This kind of relates to part one, but this is more, I'm trying to relate it to sports. For example, if you look at an offensive lineman, when two linemen combine, like an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman, when they come at each other, there's going to be maybe a part where neither of them are moving. They're just hitting each other. There's no movement being done. And if one of those linemen cuts a part of his training to train with isometric contractions and he's used to exerting force on a non-moving object where there's no movement at the joint, he may have the edge over someone who always trains when there's some type of motion going on. So again, that's another way you can train, is train for a sport. If your sport has some type of isometric contractions going on, MMA, football, things like that, or American football, then you may want to add those to your training. Again, it'll help convert into a sport setting better. It'll help you perform better. A third one, and again, I'm going to talk about this a lot on this channel, is simply just to break sticking points in your training or breaking plateaus. A lot of people don't switch up their training enough. They don't. They stick to the same thing for a really long time. I've seen people do things for 2-3 months, the same exact things. They don't want to work with isometric contractions, or they've never heard of them, but if they have, they don't work with them because they don't think they build strength. These, if you do them in addition to concentric and eccentric contractions, will definitely help with your big lifts. So again, don't avoid these. These are really good at breaking plateaus. If you're at that point where you're working with bands or you're working with dumbbells and you're like, well, I did biceps for the last 5 weeks, but I don't know how to change it. I have no idea. Maybe you want to throw in some isometric contractions. You can pick a weight that's moderately heavy for you, not too light, not too heavy, and just hold it halfway. You know, again, you're going to find burn. You're going to find it to be extremely hard if you're not used to it. So that's a good way to throw it in. Another thing to think about with isometric contractions is you can use them in 2 different ways. I'm pretty sure the terms are yielding and overwhelming. I may have one of those wrong, but with an isometric contraction, you could do it 2 different ways. Is one, if you use the bench press example, if you unrack weight and you bring it halfway and you hold it there, you were trying to hold it there for as long as you can, but in theory, if you really wanted to, you could accelerate the bar back up. Or you could lower the bar and start doing regular repetitions. So you are yielding to the force. You are purposely holding it there on purpose. You're not exerting any more force. You're not exerting any less force. You are just putting the exact amount of force needed to hold the bar there. Then that's called yielding. I'm 99% sure. Then there's overwhelming isometrics, which are you are pressing against something isometrically that you can't move. For example, if you have 2 linemen with equal strengths and they run at each other and they're both pushing as hard as they can to push past the other person. Let's just say they're going straight at each other for this example, and they're both pushing as hard as they can, but neither of them is budging. That's an overwhelming isometric where they're not holding back. They're going as hard as they can, but there is still no movement. There's no movement going on. So on the second example, they aren't holding back. They're putting in as much force, but there's no change in joint angle. They're not moving. Same thing with the other one, though. It's kind of opposite. The person on the bench press example could accelerate the force if they wanted to, but they're choosing not to because they're trying to purposely work with isometrics. So that's a different way that you can look at it. If you have some type of equipment in your gym that you're like, oh, okay, well, I could put this way and push as hard as I can to work with isometrics, or you can do the yielding one where you hold a bar or a dumbbell or a weight essentially perpendicular to gravity, and you're just going to hold it there to challenge yourself in that way. But again, if you like this video, please like it, share it. I'd appreciate it. Share it on your Facebook, show a friend. All the likes and views, they really do help. I don't have a lot of subscribers, but I plan to have a bunch in the future. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep putting out 2 videos weekly. Again, if you do like it, share it, subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, peace.